So hopefully you were able to download Xcode without any problems. And if you went ahead and downloaded Xcode and opened it up, it may appear in your dock, so you may be able to open it up from here. Or you can also go to your Spotlight and type in Xcode and open it this way as well. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Xcode. And this first screen we see here is the ability to create a new project, as well as other open projects that I've used before. So if this is your first application, which is the one you'll be creating right now, this will probably be blank for you. But as you start creating some applications and using them, this will start to fill up with your recent applications. So you can go ahead and select Create a new Xcode project. And for now, we're going to be choosing iOS application, single view application, but let's take a minute and talk about what some of these other options are. So below here we see OS X, and we actually have the ability to create OS X or the applications for the Mac operating system. We won't be doing that in this course, but this is an option, and it's actually also written in Objective-C. We also have access to a bunch of templates in iOS, including master detail, which you will see often when you want two views simultaneously. As an example, in the iPad email application, you see there's both a menu on the left as well as the current email on the right. OpenGL is super useful for creating games, and it's integrated, although we won't be covering that in this course. Page-based applications are really common for opening tutorials. Single view, which we'll be using, sets up some boilerplate code so we get an initial view or a place we can present information to the user on a single screen. And this will link up the code to create this single screen for us. So our project will get created with a single screen. Tabbed application is really common in many photo applications, including Instagram. Utility applications are less common, but as an example, you can go ahead and open up the Stocks application on your iPhone, and you'll see an example of what a utility application looks like. Empty application is just that, it's empty. And unlike the single view application that we'll be using, we won't immediately have a view controller, so nothing will be presented on the screen, whereas when we run our application with the single view application, we get a white screen because we haven't added anything to it yet. And SpriteKit is one of the newer templates, and this allows us to create games, and is definitely worth checking out if you're interested in games. Although we'll be sticking with the Cocoa Touch framework to make iPhone applications, not games. So we can go ahead and select Next after selecting Single View Application. And next we come to a screen where we need to choose some options to create our new project. And the first thing we need to do is create a product name. So I'm going to call this My First Application. And notice that I'm using camel case here, which is capitalizing the letters, the first letter for each word. And this is really common in Objective-C. In some other programming languages, you may have used underscores, but for Objective-C, it's very common to use this camel case. Next, you can put in an organization name. If you don't have one, you don't have to fill this in. It's not required. You see we don't get an error here. But if you have one, you can put it in here. For the company identifier, I've gone ahead and put a reverse DNS.myname here. But again, if you don't have your own URL, you can go ahead and just put self.edu.yourname. This is also valid. So I'm going to put this back in. And next we have a class prefix. And class prefixes are really useful later on when we're going to be creating files, so that it's very obvious to us that these are our created files and not something that someone else created or maybe Apple created. So it's really handy to put class prefix in. I'm doing CC for Code Coalition. If you, again, don't have your own organization, you could put your initials, so I could put EA if I wanted to. And if you use a different class prefix, just be aware that when you're looking at the code, anytime you see a CC, you're instead going to see your own class prefix that you entered when you're taking a look at your files. So don't be thrown. The names will look very similar, except it'll have a different class prefix in front of it. And in fact, some people find it helpful to use a different class prefix because it's obvious to them, like, oh, that's where this is being changed. We can also select a device here, and we can select between the iPad, iPhone, or a universal application. A universal application will deploy to both the iPad and iPhone simultaneously. To keep things a little bit simpler, we're going to go ahead and select iPhone for now, and we'll talk about the iPad later on in the course. So we can go ahead and press Next, and next we have the option where to save our project. So I'm going to go ahead and just save this right to my desktop, and you can feel free to press the source control button. We won't get to source control until section 3, where we'll be able to start pushing our projects up to GitHub, but it causes no problem to just initialize our project with a Git repository. So we can go ahead and press create. And let me go ahead and expand my project out. And now we have our first Xcode project.